I'm safe in my body. I'm safe to be seen. I'm safe to be perceived by millions of people.
Who are you?
You have to be like nervous system ready for this. It genuinely felt like unsafety to the point like a saber-toothed tiger running after me. Before my psychedelic journey began, I worked in a corporate life. I was just bored and stressed. And I was like, there has got to be more. That experience was so gentle with me. It was just literally being enveloped in softness. I went to the beach and I just wrote in the sand, I love you. I was laid off from my job.
Oh my God.
2 hours after I said yes to this entirely new path, God came online. There was just like a radio station turned on. How in this life are you not loving yourself? Deeply, really deeply. And how deep can that love go?
Who are you?
Who am I? That is like the $1,000,000 question here. My name is Kat Walsh. I am a host. I've hosted a couple of different podcasts, one in the psychedelic space called Trip on This. I had a personal journal style podcast called Life with Kat Walsh. I am a DJ. My artist alias is Cat's Meow. I'm a digital content creator. I talk about rave culture and innovation and science, and in many ways, I'm kind of like a layman when it comes to especially science and technology, but I'm deeply passionate about what it's doing. And so I'll share my enthusiasm. I've been a psychedelic voice for, I guess, the last 5 years, just kind of bringing it into the mainstream. And it has taken me on just a wonderful adventure and ride, with everything. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'm a friend. I love to dance. I'm, that's kind of, I live in California. That's kind of my initial high level vibe.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of tease out of that already. I know for you, like psychedelics has obviously been a big part of your journey, and I'm wondering if can you like walk us through like where were you in your life that like brought you to psychedelics? And I don't know if that started with your ayahuasca journey or if it was something before that, but like who were you kind of at that phase in your life, and what were you going through that like brought you to psychedelics?
Yeah, great question. I love the way you framed it because it's the easiest way for me to talk about like who was Kat pre-psychedelics and who was Kat post-psychedelics. Before my psychedelic journey began, to start, I did mushrooms when I was 16, and I did it. If I always say if there was a handbook of like all the things not to do on your first mushroom trip, that's what I did. Hence, I didn't do it. Hence, I didn't do it again for 15 years because it just I scared myself so bad. I had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, I was 16 with my 16-year-old friend. We had no idea what we were in for, and so I didn't do it again for 15 years. I did a mushroom trip again. What it showed me was I needed to deal with my emotion. I didn't have a bad trip, but it was not. I didn't understand it was fun. Okay. It was not fun yet. So I was like, people think of like, you want to get some shrooms and trip out and have some fun. And so far that was not my experience with mushrooms. And I think it's important for people to know that because I think a lot of people go into the psychedelic experience thinking, well, this is fun. People want to do this. Like, right. Like it's just, we think of it as like, well, why would you take anything that could bring you to these scary places potentially? Sure. And that's a whole other conversation. And so at that point, I wouldn't say they had been like the catalyst for me yet. And I worked in a corporate life. I was very type A. I always had big, sexy jobs. I worked at the ESPN X Games, and then I worked at a large talent agency called CAA, looking after bona fide movie stars. Huh. And it was cool. It was cool saying what I did, but really doing it was... I would say it was my favorite thing was just saying what I did, but really in practice, everything I did, I was so stressed and so afraid every day. And I just was really locked into myself is the way that I would describe it. And I guess I was in a low level of like anxiety and depression, but I didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't understand that how I felt wasn't normal. I thought like this, I could look around and see like people that were clinically depressed and clinically anxious. And I was like, well, I'm not that. Right. So I guess I'm doing great out here, like I think in hindsight, looking around, I guess I'm doing okay.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I got to, I was at another kind of large creative agency. And at this point I was so bored and stressed with my life. Bored and stressed. And there was no, like, I would live for the weekend. I would live to kind of escape from my life, and everything else was filler for me. Like, I would just get through. And it's not that I didn't have like peak little moments, of course, in life, but
Yeah.
I, I wasn't, I certainly didn't live an inspired life. I wouldn't even know what you meant by that. I was a good worker. I followed instructions well, like it was good manpower for any
Mhm.
big company. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur ever.
Mm.
Like I was not entrepreneurial. And I like to pull that out because that was one of the biggest fundamental shifts after psychedelics
Mm.
was the belief that I could actually create something of meaning. And I actually didn't even think I was entrepreneurial. Like I really just didn't think that I just was interested. I didn't realize until after psychedelics that I think that was just like deep self-limitation. And because I didn't actually know what I wanted to create, then I was like, well, I don't want to, there's nothing I want to create. So like, I'm not an entrepreneur or whatever.
Mhm.
And so that was pre-cat, like very lost, very trying to follow the rules. I can't say I really felt joy, but I felt happiness. I was always good at having fun. I could have
Mhm.
fun and I could feel happiness, but joy as like an essence, I don't know if I had tapped into that yet.
Hmm.
Then the ayahuasca journey that you're mentioning,
Yeah.
and that and by the way, so I don't just monologue, feel free to jump in at any
Yeah.
point if you
Well,
have any
I
questions
was
for
I was
me.
gonna just kind of like
Yeah.
pig into that part. Like, how did you end up? Because you're going through this phase. You're working in an agency. You're to your standpoint. You're living this at least external life that everybody would maybe really admire and be jealous of. You love talking about your job, but don't necessarily love living your job. You're living for the weekends. Like, what actually brought you like to ayahuasca at that point? Because that's like a big jump for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and just for like I guess timeline standpoint, like what year is this? Like
Mhm.
where is this like happening even in your own personal journey? How old are you? Like what's kind of going? Can you give us like context on that?
Yeah, definitely. So it was 2018. I had did a mushroom. My first mushroom trip as an adult was 2017. That's the
Okay.
one that was like not fun, not bad, but also not fun. And it just showed me that I had a lot of undealt with emotion.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the first psychedelic experience that I think started to open up. But really, at that point, I hadn't had any real context with
Yeah.
psychedelics. So the jump to ayahuasca was I was 31. I'm 39 now, and I was 31 then. And I'm at this marketing job. As I mentioned, I'm bored and stressed. And I went to a friend's birthday party, and I had heard about ayahuasca before this point,
Hmm.
but like I remember Chelsea Handler talking about it, and I remember thinking like, why would anybody want to do that? It sounds scary and
Horrible.
terrible. Like you're
Yeah.
purging and like but of course that's where I was at then because I wasn't ready. Because
Yeah.
that was a fundamental, not only an experience, but like a complete shakeup of my entire life. And so when I first heard it, I was like, definitely not. Now let's call it like 2 or 3 more years when I meet my friend's medicine woman who he had done ayahuasca with.
Hmm.
And she was talking about ayahuasca, and in that moment I knew it had found me.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, and you hear that often when it comes to ayahuasca, that it like calls you when it's time. That somehow there's an aha and an inner knowing that like, this is my moment. And so that moment came, and my intention for that was, please put me on the path. Please put me on the path of what I'm meant to be doing with my life, because somehow in my deep down, I feel like life is meant to feel purposeful and inspiring and fun and joyful. Like I just knew it as a truth, even though I hadn't experienced yet in my
Hmm.
life. At this point, I was just bored and stressed. And I was like, there has got to be more, because if there's not, I'm going to have an existential crisis. It's
Yeah.
already happening right now. If this is all we're going to do for the rest of my life. And so at 31, I kind of come in with like what I would say is like on my hands and knees, like truly surrendered in that process. I took my dieta, which is the process of getting your body and your mind ready for an experience like ayahuasca, very seriously. Like close to 3 weeks, I was very strict. I mean, that was so me. Like I'm very extreme when I make choices anyway, but I was very strict with my dieta, and I just was ready for it to be as hard as it needed to be. I really was ready for it to be hard if it had to be in order to change something. And so I guess like that transformation must have already been happening inside me, but unconsciously at that
Mm,
time. I didn't realize like my soul was undergoing change to even invite myself into
right.
something that could potentially be scary and like literally physically, makes you nauseous and make you purge. And so that's kind of like was that moment, right? And I won't before I go into that moment, like that's kind of that
Mm,
it was completely surrendered and
yeah.
just like, look, help
Yeah.
me. I
Yeah.
don't even know what I need.
I mean, it sounds like to your point, like that's exactly what I've heard from so many different people with ayahuasca is like it'll, if it's meant for you, it'll find you. And like I think you're speaking to that like kind of deep inner knowing, that intuition, if you will, that there was something more. I'm curious, like for you at that point, was that a voice that you had been connected with still through that whole journey of your life of just this kind of deeper inner knowing that you've always had, or is that something that kind of really started to emerge at that point?
Yeah, I did. It hadn't emerged yet, actually. I mean, not consciously,
Yeah.
no, I would say I was like still very like deeply uh, asleep slash just muted to intuition. I mean, my intuition was talking all the time, but the mental, having a strong mind is very good for some things, but it's
Yeah.
also not very, it can be very stubborn and dogmatic and like doesn't want, it thinks it knows what's best for it and what it wants
Right.
to experience joy and what it thinks the answer is. And I think my mind was a powerful tool for like, it was just trying to keep me safe in my
Sure.
life. It wanted to control everything, not people, but control the perception of me. How am I
Mm,
perceived? Try to control outcomes. I had really super disconnected from flow or trust or faith for that matter.
mm,
There was no, I would say I was spiritual. I would call
mhm.
myself like I'm spiritual because I guess
Yeah.
that's just in my family. Not religious, by the way. I never grew up religious, but that was no practice and not even that was no felt sense. But it was guiding me. I just thought I was just making choices as they went, but I wouldn't have called it intuition until really my psychedelic journey really began.
Huh. Very cool. So you're kind of at this point where you've been through, you're working CA, and I'm guessing like all of these different companies, the things, those are the things that you were feeling like, oh, if I do this, then I will feel joy and happiness. I should be feeling that. And so like to your point, like that's where you're at this phase where you're like, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not experiencing what I think I ought to be experiencing.
Right.
And so then you find the medicine woman, she introduces you and like, brings you to ayahuasca. So what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. Man, my journey was so beautiful and cool and hard-ish when I purged, but it wasn't she was so she as in the just the essence of ayahuasca, right? That experience was so gentle with me. And it's funny, like I never even thought of like how much I needed to give gentleness to myself and still do, like I can be uh, critical and hard on myself because I expect a lot from myself. And I think a lot of people experience that, especially high achievers, if you will, like in quotes,
Hmm.
like it's ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And I think what the the medicine literally was showing me gentleness. And I didn't get, I did purge on the second cup. Not fun. However, not terrible either. Like it
Mm.
was like it was kind of quick in hindsight compared to maybe some of the other people that were there. And ultimately was like very it just showed me the power. It's funny, this is not where I would have like necessarily my spiritual awakening, which I literally had a mystical experience later. But I felt the power of something that I have never experienced before. I don't even know if I would have just said like love. Like all I felt was just like, whoa, like just whoa is the feeling that I was feeling. And also the connection I felt to everybody else there. I'm
Mm.
listening to some people laugh and cry and moan and like talk in another language and like just all these things. And I just recognized myself in it. I recognized all the emotions. I was like, we're all so different. We live different lives. We're different colors and different genders. And yet I'm recognizing every emotion that I'm hearing all at once, like a symphony of humanity inside myself. And I was like, oh, like there are core truths that we experience as a
Yeah.
humanity, and the way that it shows up and manifests is quite different, obviously. And so that was just like, but I didn't get my aha
Hmm.
from the necessarily the experience. I didn't just get like, okay, so my intention was, please put me on the path. It wasn't like, all right, Kat, you're going to start a podcast. Like it was, I
Just
honestly thought, I
visions
was
of a
like,
microphone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, am I going to get instructions? Like I had no idea. Some people do, like
Uh-huh.
that's the thing that's why it's so important to always, when talking about psychedelic experiences, to also caveat, like, this could happen to you or something totally different. If
Yeah.
there's billions of people in the world, there are billions of experiences that can happen. Like there's similarities,
Right.
but yeah, like for me, it was just, I don't know if it was, I honestly don't know what it was doing, other than it was the next day that I actually had the most profound ahas from the journey itself.
Yeah. Well, you said something that struck me, which you were like, a lot of what you experienced from her from ayahuasca was this sense of gentleness. Like, how did that gentleness like come through that experience for you?
Great question. Thanks for asking that, because it was very specific. I remember I literally had the vision. So I'm like snuggled up, like, like on my side with my pillow, my blanket, with this like little like smile on my face. And I felt like I was just like laying on clouds of like pink and purple sparkles, like
Yeah.
glitter. And I'm just like this. And it was just like holding me. And
Mm.
here I thought, I'm like, because I was so ready
Mm.
for pain somehow, that I needed to somehow see darkness, that I needed to go through, that somehow I don't know, like it's almost like, was I what would and it reminds me of like that self flogging, like what about you thinks that you need to be
Mm.
punished
Harsher.
somehow
Yeah.
by this to learn, like what is that, and I think
Yeah.
it was just like and interesting, I was a softball player, and I know that like my best coaches were the kind that like talked positively to me.
Mm.
I never did well with coaches that yelled at me. I was already hard enough on myself. I was like,
Right.
the last thing I need is somebody else telling me how terrible I just did. Like that is, I'm mad at you and me now. So like, get out of here. And so like, it was just literally like embodied moments of just being enveloped in softness. And I was like, you can give this to yourself. But I didn't get it yet. I didn't get that yet.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from that is like you kind of like you said you were raised as an athlete, you had all this high performance stuff, and like there is that probably like, jockey on the back of your shoulders that's constantly like go faster, go faster, go faster.
Hmm.
And even when you're going into the ayahuasca experience, you're like prepped and ready for like, okay, I'm ready for like another intensity of thing. And instead you got this other message, which was like gentleness, compassion for yourself, like softness, like letting yourself really like rest and slow down, it
Hmm.
sounds like.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about that for you. Like, how did you start to like integrate that, I guess, into your life? I mean, you said you didn't even necessarily find full awareness of that right away. So like, what did you do with that message? Were you like angry at the fact that like what you were supposed to give me my path? Like, what is this? Like, what was that experience like afterwards?
Yeah, yeah. No, I wasn't angry about it. I mean, I felt quite like proud of myself, I think, after, and just like, wow, you did it. Like,
Mm.
great job. Like, that's just how courageous of you to do that. And my integration, I went to the beach the next day. Actually, I woke up in the morning, and so when you're doing the part of the dieta is like eating a lot of raw vegetables and things. And what's interesting is every time I would eat these like beautiful, this is part of like the nurture for myself, is like I would create, like cut like 5 or 6 colorful vegetables raw, and like it just like lay it out like beautifully, like, and just drizzle it and all the colors and stuff that, nourished my body. And for me, like prior, like I wouldn't take the time to do that. I would cook for myself, but I was very like creature of habit. I'd be like, okay, now
Right.
I'm gonna have turkey burgers for 5 days in a row because I have turkey. Like really not like just because it was fine enough. Like I think that's
Yeah.
just how I treated my life in general, was like,
Yeah.
if I had somebody here, I wouldn't cook for them like that, but because just me, I will. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to like once it's somebody else is in the picture, they'll
Sure.
do more. But like why we don't do that for ourselves is just an interesting curiousness, right?
Yeah.
How do you become the love of your life to yourself, really?
Yeah.
And so I ate these big bowl of vegetables, and every time I would do that, it would trigger these like massive cries, like weeping. And the cry felt so cathartic. Like it just felt so good. And it's not like I was somebody who like wasn't a stranger to crying by any means. Like I would cry, but it was a different, I was like, it felt like I was almost like wailing at some point, but it was like an energy move. It was like moving energy, and it didn't feel sad. In fact, what that did was as I was like weeping and crying, I would have these memories all throughout, like from childhood up, of moments in my life where I wasn't able to process how much that hurt me. Like a boy when I was 6 years old physically had made fun of me, and in that moment I didn't know how much that hurt. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know how to take that. And so it just got stored away as like a file in the millions and millions of memories that I have in my body. And it showed me first that like those things never really go away. Like that's the fact that like this file was coming up, but what it felt like was I was crying for myself. Like I was crying for that time that never got to cry for her, that didn't know how to even do that. And I would just track through like different like memories were just coming up as if they were being released. Like I'd finally just like really I was closing a cycle on these like open loops is what it felt like. Just all these open energetic loops that just never had closure to them.
Yeah.
And so I was experiencing that really not, I wasn't trying, I wasn't like actively trying to think of memories. And then I went to the beach, and that's finally when I just wrote in the sand. I was like, I love you. And it was just really my first experience of like understanding that self-love not was the answer. One, that was the whole trip was about self-love for me. And realizing that everything I could possibly dream of and want and desire in the world had started with loving with myself. And understanding what that meant. Not like you just look pretty today or you look this or that, like the ways that we dishonor ourselves, the subtle unworthiness stuff that comes up, that's where the journey began, was how in this life are you not loving yourself deeply, really deeply? And how deep can that love go? And that's like, that was the catalyst. That was the moment that set me on an entirely new life path.
Yeah. So you write the I love you in the sand. You're kind of connecting with that sense of loving yourself. And I think one of the things I've really appreciated about you and your work and just doing the research on you is like you talk often about like the importance of that sort of embodied experiential ness of all this stuff, and not just like the curiosity or the conceptual idea of like self-love. So I'm curious for you, from your own direct experience, like what does self-love like actually look like? Because I think we talk about it often. So it's such a word that gets thrown out there, a phrase that gets out there, like you gotta love yourself more or whatever that is. But like, for someone who's hearing that, maybe is trying to love themselves, like how did you find self-love? What did that actually look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, at that time, some of it was like really practical. Like I had gone off dating apps, for instance. I had realized like, and there's nothing wrong with dating apps, but at that time it was reminding me of lack that what I didn't have. And it didn't feel good. It really like, and I knew it didn't feel good, but I think I was in a lack mentality in general. And then that created a like hyper lack. So it was like, for instance, I was like, how about instead of trying to date right now, you just like pour that time like back into yourself. So like, how about bubble baths? Like I would take a bath every night, and I would take a bath every night because my body literally needed to rest. It needed relaxation so badly, and still does. Like if there is one constant that I need to continue to practice, is go mode is easy for me. Rest mode is harder. And rest, it's like trusting rest. It's the journey of trusting that actually sometimes doing less can do more for your dreams and for your
Right.
manifestation. And that when you are literally in a place of calm, you can one, think better, and more gets to come to you instead of thinking that we're pretty limited. And so when we're too mentally busy, we're not allowing enough space to get a new idea, a new spark. And it comes from like, in my case, it was like almost like forced rest in the beginning,
Yeah.
or like getting outside. Like I really wasn't prioritizing like being in the sun, like ended up going to the park like 3 or 4 times a week.
Mm.
At the end of my workday, I would just go to the park, put my feet in the grass and cry, basically. And and ask the earth, and I would get all, very nature with it, and ask the earth to help me just like continue to release what I don't even understand, like the
Yeah.
pressure and the whatever it is that's making life so, like, I'm slogging through it,
Right.
like whatever that is, like bye. So it was a lot of like and dancing, like
Hmm.
I danced. Oh my, I'm dancing my favorite. I know you love electronic
Yeah. Yeah.
music as well, and
Yeah.
I dance has always been a big part of that, like ever since actually really like hitting 30.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
really hitting 30, and I discovered MDMA, and I was like, that's it. Good night. I'm having the time of my life. This world peace, and through that, like dance has been such a huge release for me because it's one of the best ways for me to get out of my mind and into my
Yeah.
body. And
Well,
when I feel good, I can think.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to dig into that a little bit more because I know you posted like fairly recently on like Instagram where you were talking about how you do love dance, but it wasn't always a thing for you. I think you talked about like before it was like you maybe needed a few drinks, and even then it was like it wasn't really this sense of self expression. Like, can you walk us through like I guess your journey with dancing to like finding it to be something that you just absolutely love now?
Yeah, yes, when dancing for me was, for one, it wasn't a love in the beginning. Well, okay. If I look back at my little kid videos of
Mm,
me, it's so cute. I would dance all the time. Since I was a baby, I was dancing.
yeah.
And I would literally do like performances for my parents. I would like put lights everywhere, and like a lot of little kids, we wanted to perform and be a star and shine. And then somehow along the way, I got very, very self-conscious and very locked into myself. And I always needed a drink.
Mm,
And dancing was, I don't know, like sexy girl dancing, like, and just this silly, like whatever I thought looked attractive and
yeah.
cute. And I wasn't dancing for the like pure joy for myself. It was really like wrapped up, I think, in like who's watching me, and
Mhm.
am I attractive? And I think that's women in their 20s as it is. Like I think not just women. I think there's just we're we're much more self-conscious, I think, of
Yeah.
the other sex in our 20s.
Yeah.
Men and women, although I can't speak for men, but yeah, like I just it was just that, and it
Hmm.
wasn't free. I
Yeah.
wasn't free in my expression in my dance. And then when I started taking psychedelics, I really began like taking psychedelics with my friends. So I've always noted in community and enjoy it and laugh and fun and like having a
Hmm.
good time. And we paired mushrooms with MDMA pretty often. So it was just like this, this delightful cocktail of like joy and expansion and connection, because obviously psychedelics as a whole, they help dissolve, they take down the barriers of separation between each other. So now you feel so connected and you feel so open, and you get to be yourself. And the more that I would do it and then dance and be with my friends, the more that I was like literally like coming out of my shell. Like
Yeah.
I remember the journey even of the way that I would dance. Again, I was like very like locked in when I was first watching my friend's show that he had created, and I was like, very whatever. And then it was just like wild woman in the middle. And then it ended up just being somewhere in the middle of just kind of like just fun, like groovy and like cool, like not cool, like I think I'm cool, but like just kind of oh God, I can't
The
even
vibe?
explain. Yeah, like just I can't. I finally became like I feel like the essence. Like I feel like if you saw me dance, it's like exactly what I sound like to you. I just feel like if my dance moves like sound like me as a look like me as a personality. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's been like such a joy to and the funny and the beauty of the full circle is how much more attention, okay, from the opposite sex I actually have gotten over the
Mm,
years from the authenticity of the of
mm.
fun. Joy is attractive.
Yeah, no, that's something that I totally resonate with. I mean, the amount of times where you're somebody who's in the festival and rave scene as well, and like the amount of times where it's like you had this amazing experience at a festival, and then you go back to like another festival, and there's like a part of you that's like, how do I create that experience? Oh, I'm not having that experience, right? You go through that whole like journey in your head about like, oh, how am I being perceived by people? Am I not like? And it's funny because it's like we go through that song and dance almost every time, and it's like the moment that I just kind of like let go and I'm just like, I'm just going to be like where I'm at right now. Like if my energy is not super big and bold and I just want to chill, like just follow that. And like
Yes.
that's okay. And if I want to be really big and like I can trust the moment. But to your point, like it's like an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing thing of like, how do I just trust being where I'm at and like letting that be enough?
Yes, I love that. I think that's exactly right. I mean, I just literally being where you are and like come as you are and knowing that that's enough, I think is always. I even have that like I have that with everything, you know,
Mm,
like if I'm going to a lunch or if I'm showing up for an interview or like a like a podcast like this, like no matter where I'm at that day, I was like just come as you are, Kat. Like just
right.
allow who you are in that moment to be that. You don't need to be more than
Mhm.
whatever you got going on and trust that like feelings move like this.
Yeah.
So even if like there's been time I've started on a high note from the get-go with you, but there has been times where I like something personal is happening that day, like, and I'm like, I can't be this excited person or enthusiastic right now because I'm in my feelings. And can I still be interesting enough?
Mm,
Can this be what's happening? And almost always by just allowing that, it moves.
mm.
Feelings move pretty quick, especially if you don't try to resist them and you just let it
Right.
be there. And then I usually almost always end on you know,
Yeah.
at least a different space. It doesn't have to be jumping through hoops here, but you
Right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get you. It's like I think it's one of the things. Like I used to work for essentially like a neuroscience meets meditation retreat center, and like one of the things I would often kind of coach our clients, and I would do like a check in with them. Is a lot of times you have this sort of like this peak flow experience of like really being like incredibly present, right? And that's what comes with meditation. And Alan Watts talks about this a lot, but there's this kind of like trap of enlightenment or meditation where you experience this like moment of enlightenment, if you will, and then your brain goes, oh, I want to like keep experiencing in that, and so it like grabs onto that
mhm.
when what actually gets you back to there is being where you're at, because what brought you to that in the first place was being where you're at, was being present. So it's like I remember always like driving. There's one time where I was like driving to work, I think after I had my own experience there, and like I was like really angry, but I was like angry at myself for being angry is what I realized, right?
Yeah.
And just like being like, okay, well, I can be there. I can be with the fact that I'm angry at myself for being angry, and like don't have to fight that. Just like let that be where it was. And by the end of the day, I was in a totally different space, right? But it was
Hmm.
like through that presence with what actually is, not how I want it to be, but how it is, that allowed all that stuff to kind of move forward and move upward.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious for you because you talked about like the ayahuasca and journey and like the psychedelics and all of that world. Like, where does like the festival and raves like world sort of fit into this journey as you're becoming?
Yeah, totally. I mean, while MDMA and ecstasy falls
Yeah.
under the psychedelic category,
Sure.
I don't know that at the time when I was like starting to discover MDMA, I thought of it as psychedelic in that way, in that
Right.
visionary state. And so first MDMA and shows, I mean, that was my first like big breakthrough. I'd say like that's probably still my favorite molecule, even though I'd say mushrooms. I mean, I love mushrooms too. They're so different. They're so different. Like one's like really has been tied to just such peak fun and joy, which is MDMA, like, and I just remember the feeling of like, I just didn't understand that I could feel joy like that. I just didn't know I had the capacity for joy to feel like that. And I think it's a common question people ask is like, well, yeah, that's because your brain has all these chemicals flooding it, and then you go back to your base life, whatever.
Sure.
And I was like, but I think that's what integration is, because while of course the intensity of an experience like that, you're right, okay, like it's hard to match a cocktail of things going on in here.
Sure.
However, I use that joy as like fuel for my life. Like that, I was a better coworker and, child to my parent, like just whatever, like friends, like everything that I did was better from this joy that I had felt. And I also realized the depth of joy that I didn't even realize I was accessing. Like it just showed me like, oh, there's so much I can discover in here. But I don't think I necessarily had like a ton of like consciousness yet around MDMA. Like I didn't really fully understand it, even though I was integrating it kind of naturally in my own way.
Yeah.
And then, like I was mentioning, my big psychedelic boom, right after my ayahuasca journey, about 6 months later, when a friend of ours said, hey, I created a audiovisual experience. It was at his house. And he said, it's designed for mushrooms. And we're like, cool. And we didn't know what to expect. And it was like 6 or 7 of us. And it was full on dance party, like a full on. And so to me, it was like, even though it wasn't like at a festival or rave, like it was very much paired with like dance music, visuals, like very, I can't think of the artist right now, but just fun, like I was just really like, and I was learning and I was growing through fun. I started to see myself and what I was capable of through joy. That was my access point into my spiritual awakening. That is what I want to bring to the world is healing through joy and the expansion that can come from joy. And when we see ourselves in our best, which is really when all of us are in joy. Okay, I can never speak in like absolutes, but most of us are at our best when we're in a place of joy. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
We are kinder, more patient, we're more tolerant, we're more grateful, like all the things. And so I would, as I'm getting to have all these wonderful experiences, so I'm dancing all the time with psychedelics now. And then I would like go into like festival scenes. I was like, God, like this is like the explosion of already what I was experiencing, because now that the heart coherence of being around thousands, tens of thousands of people that are in that state of joy, by and large, for the most part. Not everyone's obviously having a great time all the time, but the general vibe of those types of experiences are fun. And people are self-expressed, and then you're in your own experience, especially if you're taking molecules, and you are dancing to music, you're moving your body, and like, man, it was like powering my life. It was powering up like vision states for myself. And yeah, I mean, I'd still like, and I've also had like deep healing journeys with mushrooms. Mushrooms have also deeply scared me. Like I've had so many experience with mushroom trips, with ceremony, with social silly times with my friends. And I think they all hold a different flavor and they all hold value. As long as we're bringing that kind of like presence to the experience. You know the difference in yourself. Is this escape or is this present? Am I deepening into this moment? And I think that's a personal journey that we all go through. And I think a lot of people that have been in escape can ultimately move into the state of presence. And from the outside, it still looks like the same thing. Oh, doing mushrooms, dancing at a festival, except one was maybe more in excess and more just like to be kind of a little out of your mind, if you will. And one is really actually grounding you so fully in the moment, so present with people around, and also so present to who you are in that moment and what you're creating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think like, especially with mushrooms, like I think if you're wanting to escape, like the harder that you try to escape with mushrooms, the harder it's going to pull you into something back that you know to be present with something, and it usually creates
Yes.
that harder trip that you've referenced before.
Hmm.
I'm curious for so you talked about like you know having this sort of like spiritual awakening at some point in your journey throughout all this. Like where does that fit into this? Is this like why you're going to raves and festivals and like is it at your friend's audiovisual experience? Like what I guess what was that experience and where does that fit into your journey?
Yeah. So it was at this point, it was about 1 year. So let's see, in 2019, so that audiovisual experience with my friend, let's just call it like most of 2019.
Sure.
And I am evolving and changing rapidly.
Hmm.
Okay. Rapid growth. And I mean, and I didn't have any formal integration at the time. This is a little bit before I wasn't like super clued into the, you know, set and setting. Like I
Yeah.
honestly didn't even really know of the psychedelic terms, if you will. Like now I've been like involved with the industry, so I know so much more
Yeah.
clearly. But at the time, it was just very intuitive. And 2019, I get this. This is the first life changing moment. Was I am watching my friend's visual experience, dancing. I'm having whatever, and it was November 2019, and I remember just watching, and I just had this thought, and I was like, I can do whatever I want, anything I want. And I remember like it was so passing and so it wasn't loud. That wasn't a loud thought, but it came in very clear. And instead of just letting that go, I inquired about it. And I
Hmm.
was like, I can do anything I want. What do I mean by that? You know, like
Yeah.
what I didn't even know what I meant by that. Like I had no sense of what that meant other than it was very deeply profound and I knew it. And so I set an intention, I think maybe even that night, and I said, please, I began to get the vision that the life that I dream of, I must create because it's never going to be given to me by this corporate, like as a supervisor at an ad agency. It's
Hmm.
not coming that way for myself. That could be for other people's journey, right? But
Hmm.
for what I saw was like this gorgeous home that I was living in. This gorgeous where the whole wall is glass to the ocean horizon. I was like, well, this this view that you see yourself in, it's not from this path that you're on. You're not, this is not the life path that you're on. So I realized I was like, okay, so you're going to have to create it. And I really understood it was going to be the first time that actually I could create wealth. I had never, I really like didn't understand, money has always been this part of my journey has been around how to value myself and money and learning about that. And so it was the first like sudden get that I was like, you mean I can literally create something that is that meaningful? Like, but I didn't know what it was. Like, obviously,
Hmm.
and I'm still, that's still becoming, and I have some fun new ideas that I'm not ready to share right now, but it was just so, and I just said, okay, I set an intention. I said, okay, universe, God, whatever, please, please put me on the path of what I'm meant to be doing and, and give me the courage to really go for it when it shows up because I knew somehow that there was going to be a leap of faith when that thing showed up, that I was going to need to go all in
Yeah.
and I was going to need courage to do it. And please make it obvious to me. And so
Yeah.
then it was a year later that actually that it happened.
What was
Yeah.
that like moment?
Yeah. So, and I know you're asking about the mystical, so to the July 2020 now, I'm having one of the best weekends of my life with my friends. I'm I'm the best I've ever seen myself. You know when you can somehow get like almost outside of yourself and you're in
Yeah.
that third party, you're sitting in the seat of the soul, you're in your awareness now. And I'm watching myself and I was like, look how good you are in a crowd. Like look how look look at you. Like, look at the woman you are becoming. Like, I was so taken by myself. And I know that
Mm.
sounds so weird, especially people are like, and I mean this like with such, it was like really like viewing myself through the eyes of love, really for the
Yeah.
first time. I was like, whoa, look who you are. Like, and
Hmm.
honestly, like not that much had changed, but I had not seen it yet.
Hmm.
I was shielded and blinded to it under my own stuff. And I still have plenty of that, but at least I had more. It's more of the good outweighs, I think, a lot of the when the self limitation comes up. I have a stronger part of me that's like, okay, get past that, girl. Love that part of you that's feeling really insecure. Don't worry about it,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I set an intention again. I said, I'm ready.
Hmm.
I'm ready. And 1 week later, I get a call from a comedian I hadn't heard from in 6 years and was like, hey, Kat, I can't travel with the pandemic. Do you want to start a podcast together? And I was like, really? Like literally hadn't talked to him in 6 years, but he had a following. Like he had like an actual legitimate, he was hip pocketed by CAA, which is one of the big agencies. Like he was like a big comedian. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like what a crazy opportunity out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Fast forward, we do one episode. It was amazing. And then boom, the next day he calls, he's like, you want to do this together? I'm going to put a branding into it. I'm going to put money into it. Do you want to really give this a shot? And I said, yes. And then literally 2 hours later, I get a calendar invite on my Google from 3 people. I was like, that's an interesting 12 o'clock meeting. And I was laid off from my job
Oh my God.
2 hours after I said yes to this entirely new path. And the beauty of that was I was given a small severance, which kept me out of fear, like deep
Yeah.
fear in that moment. And I know this is a very long way of, and then it didn't work out with the comedian, but I realized, oh, but I'm going to make a podcast about psychedelics. I'm going to make a podcast about the thing that is making this even possible, because no way I would have believed that I can create something like this. Old Kat did not believe she could do anything like this. And so I wanted to create Trip on This as this, like, not just a place for people to discover their own, the power of what psychedelics can do and breaking down limitation, and to also share my own story and to be a living blueprint that you could change your life.
Yeah.
You could fundamentally change your life. You can become someone new. And it's not easy. That's been the whole next journey. But then about 3 or 4 months later, I ended up having a mystical experience that, interestingly enough, like it both changed my life and upended everything else at the same time. And it's a tricky one to go into, other than it was during that the show experience. And it was, there's no words that will ever convey experience, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
you talk about psychedelics, but if you've never done it, it's just words.
Sure.
But there was just like I always just say like God came online. Like I don't know how else to say. Like I became like keenly aware of more, that I was not like, it wasn't a belief system anymore. I suddenly, like a funnel of information
Yeah.
and guidance, so clear, very like clear audience. Suddenly like I just like more like psychic gifts came online, like really like boom. And I was not on a big dose of mushrooms. I was like talking to my friend, like a little
Yeah.
bit, but it's never gone away. As I always say to people, I was like, but it wasn't like just in that experience, because for forevermore, I have been attuned and guided by an energy, and like, I always say like my angels, my guides, like it's so, there's a dialogue, and not in a, I know people are going to be like, you schizophrenic girl. Like, no, it's not that. It's not even like the booming. It's not like voices in your head. And I'm sure for those that have a deep connection with their own intuition, who receive messages that are, whether you're a channel or an intuitive, this is to me a human gift that we all have. And you just tune into it when the time comes, because it will change your life. And then you have to be ready for then all of the life change, because that is its own journey in and of itself.
Yeah. Where were you like at in that moment? You said you were like on a little bit of mushrooms with like a friend. Like, were you just like hanging out and like having a good time and that happened? Or were you like recording a podcast episode? Like, what were you doing in that moment?
Yeah. So we were, yeah, it was a social event. Like I wasn't, it was very, very unexpected. And one of the girls, I didn't know her. I've actually didn't really know her. She was the assistant of the friend who puts it all on. And I'd met her maybe like once or twice. She's from the UK. So I really have never, I couldn't tell you a single thing about her background. And she was a little bit prone to having tough experiences on psychedelics, even though she was like really intrigued by them. But it was like pretty often it could go a little south for her. And I had, it was happening again, basically. And we brought her into the main kind of room. And she's like, I can see she's going off in the path that we've seen her go off before,
Sure.
where it just kind of starts to spiral a little bit. And I start to say, I guess, because this is where it happens. I start saying stuff about her childhood and like stories about it, and like stuff that I didn't know. Like literally, like I just didn't know. I didn't know it. I was just saying words through, but I didn't even know. And then she finally says, "How do you always know what to say to me?" Like she's like, it took her aback. Like she went out of her like the spiral she was in, and then got more curious
Yeah.
about like what? And then I said, and in that moment I was like, this is going to sound really weird, but I don't think that was me. Like and she's like, "Oh, Kat, come on. You always have good advice. You always this." I was like, I mean, I appreciate that. I said, but I don't even know what I just said to you. I kind of like knew a little bit about like, it's almost like I kind of heard it passively. And I was like, I don't know anything about you. Like,
Yeah.
why? I just was saying, and then it was like, from that, like it felt like I just suddenly like opened my eyes, and it was like a whole world was suddenly like active around me. And I was like, dude, this is the craziest, coolest, most profound experience of my life. I don't know what I'm doing. This is insane. I told a couple friends that was not a great idea. Not a great idea. Probably one of the biggest things I would tell people if they are having an experience like that is like, unless you're with a guide, psychedelic guide or something, or like somebody who is
Right.
like can hold that information. I was talking to a bunch of atheists too. Imagine that. I'm talking to like hardcore atheists, and I'm like, I think I have something's happening to me right now, and I am I'm 100% serious. Actually, that I'm very much in tune with some other frequency that's I'm tuned into now. Like a radio, like it was like just like a radio station turned on. I was like, whoa, what's happening over here?
Yeah.
And that radio station has always been, and I think I've learned from how to talk about it, because it not just that, there was other things, but I made a lot of mistakes actually when I was having my but not mistakes that weren't mistakes. Obviously every choice that we make was perfect. And I think when those that are having these big openings don't realize that if you're talking to somebody who's not experienced that yet, you're going to sound crazy to them. You're going to sound unrelatable. You might scare them. This is they don't know this version of you. You don't know that version of you. I didn't know. So the naivety, or I don't know, can never say that word, of expressing what I myself didn't understand was one of the big learnings for me. And I think people are going to live their life and make their own mistakes, because I think that's one of the best, not mistakes, but make their own choices, and they're going to learn from it anyway. And now I'm just I usually don't use a lot of this type of, I'm surprised I'm even talking on this level, because I usually don't, because I know how I would have responded if I heard this 8 years ago. I would have been like, okay, girl, and I was like, how do I express a truth that is happening in a way that I could understand, corporate Catherine,
Right.
Kat, can understand,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate that because it's funny that you use the term like radio because like the episode I just recorded with Zingara, she, I think the thumbnail we had on the episode, like clip that came out today was like literally like you are radio. And that's what she talks about. It's like being able to
Oh,
like tune
really?
into these like different radio stations, whether it's like channeling for her music or these different pieces. And like, I would say like for anybody who, I don't know, is like really skeptical, I feel like I have a pretty like open-minded audience, but like, I like, these are, I think, direct experiences for a lot of different people. And I know for myself, like and part of it for me, I think, is I was born and raised really religious, and I think I've always had like a relationship with God, and it's like that
Hmm.
same channel or presence or connection that has guided me through a lot of hard times through festival journeys or whatever it is. And there's this like, it is a different thing. It's like this like quality of a voice that like provides calm through all of the noise, right? It's like
Yeah.
this like soft, gentle thing that you can like tune into and trust. And like to your point, I think the more that like, at least for me, I can speak from my own experience, the more that I have like trusted that voice, the more that things happen. Like even when you were talking about earlier, like the importance of, I think, doing less versus like trying to make things happen, and I in my 20s, I think my whole life was about like making things happen. And I was very successful at that. And like a lot of what I've been learning through my 30s has been to allow and trust things to happen for me. Like that the kind of the intention is enough, that like the steps that you're able to take in that moment are enough. And like then you just gotta let the universe like do its magic, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's beautifully said. I mean, I think it's like, we give the heart, we give the mind its due. I
Hmm.
think by and large, I think and by the mind, it's like how we're raised, society, our own experiences, what we
Hmm.
think we want, like what society deems is like, this is success. Like, like, okay, so most of us try that,
Yeah.
we try that on. And I think so many get all the things, like literally get, you know, they've got the wife and the kids and the husband, and the job, and like they have the house and they have the
Yeah.
stuff. And then then you wake up and you're like, but I'm not okay.
Hmm.
So now what? I was told that if I have all these things, I have a happy, fulfilled life. So what do I do? What if I don't?
Yeah.
And I think this is happening so often. Obviously we used to call it like, I really, when people would call it like midlife crisis, I really think that's such a put down actually to a
Hmm.
really like a really profound moment that's happening in life.
Yeah.
And, I think, okay, you want getting the fancy car, whatever, like the cliche way of doing
Yeah.
that. But I think what we are missing and yearning for is that deeper connection with ourself.
Hmm.
And like what does a joyful, fun, authentic life really look like? Like what would I really want to do? Like if I,
Yeah.
could start over, like what would
Yeah.
that be for me? And can I have the courage to go for it?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're going. And I think
Yeah.
more people need to know that they're not alone in that, and that they're more supported in that. And that there's a lot of like amazing coaches out there and people that are like, take a shot,
Yeah.
take a shot at your own life.
Yeah.
This is pretty short, to be honest. Even if you live a long one, this is a blip in time. Like,
Yeah.
do the crazy thing,
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, it makes me think about what you kind of had said, I think, through your ayahuasca experience, where you were talking about like you had that realization of like you could do whatever you want, right? And then like then you said like there's the inquiry of that of like, well, the question becomes like, well, what do you actually want? And many of the guests that I've had on this podcast have asked the question like, what do you want and why do you want it, right? And like asking that like, what is it that you want about that, and like why do you actually want that thing? And like
Mhm.
to your point, I think there can be so many people, and I think this is shifting so much on a day-to-day basis for people, but like that like a lot of people try to build a life so that they can have a thing versus like how can I have that thing now in my day-to-day life and build from that, right? Which it sounds
Yeah.
like have done and started to do. And I'm actually curious about that for you. Like you got laid off at the agency job, I assume, or whatever job you were working at that time, and then you start the podcast and like you're going to build this thing. You see yourself, I guess, as an entrepreneur now. Like, how did that go for you? Like, how is that? Like, are you like surviving, thriving? Like,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
big journey for a lot of people to take. And I had a similar adventure, to be honest. Like, I was laid off in the end of 2022, and I think I heard you even say like you were there, and they're like, okay, I'm going to start my podcast, and I had like almost like word for word like experience of what you had. It's like, I'm going to start this. I'll get 1,000 subscribers in the first year, like all of these different things, right? And then it just becomes like way harder than I imagined, or a lot slower than I would have wanted it to be, right? And so I'm curious for you, just like what has that journey been like for you so far?
Yeah, it's been both beautiful and transformational and really difficult. I mean, I really like I I like to say I was Kevin Costner Field of Dreams. And I built my entire house in the beginning with like 10 bricks at the very top and one brick at the bottom, like an upside down triangle. And I had no business strategy. I didn't know how to ask for money. Like I really I think part of my journey has been around like understanding how to ask for money. Like I was always good in like context of like a business, like big business. I always had big salaries. Like I like for some
Sure.
reason in when it came to this, like it was, I think a lot of like not enoughness was part of my journey. And in the first couple of years, oh my God, I lived on miracles, literally miracles. Like I thought, because I'm following the path, right? And I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm following my heart. I'm following this guidance. Like I'm going to become a whole new person in the world. And I'm going to become like I was meant, like you saw the video, like, and it's got to work in 3 months because I'm running out of money. So I guess I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan for psychedelics, female Joe
Yeah.
Rogan for psychedelics. And it didn't happen that way, as most don't, like, especially I like look back at like old Trip on this, like the video and everything. I was like, oh man, girl, I love the audacity to think like this is the moment, like it's like dark video, it's grainy, like, but I
Hmm.
love it. Like it was just,
Yeah.
it's such a fun, the little girl inside me was just so excited to go on this adventure for
Yeah.
myself. And I think that one of the hardest part was literally the stripping. I feel like I stripped almost all the creature comforts from my life. Financially, my job security, friends had changed, my residence had changed after a couple of years. Like everything, this is like, as I just say to people, do the crazy thing. And I'm going to tell you what can happen. I was very radical with the way that I approached my new life. And I would say, like, I didn't need to be as radical, but it was my path to understand faith and trust because it was insane. Like, what I was doing, I was like, this is crazy. Like, am I losing my mind? Like, I don't know, maybe. Like, I'm also having Kundalini awakenings at the same time, Kundalini activations, like in
Yeah.
my body. I'm having a full blown spiritual awakening while I'm trying to launch Trip on this at the same time. I don't know if that's like the most solid combination for like successful business. Like
Yeah.
really what I needed to do was I needed to do actually everything I did
Yeah.
because part of my journey was dealing with my fear of like, will I be caught? Will I really have everything I need? And there was the voice was very loud and it kept saying, keep going, you're going to have everything that you need. Keep going, you're going to have everything that you need. And straight up grace, straight up miracles. I had miracles come in, like surprise checks, tax returns I couldn't have saw coming, like ways that I was able to stay in my apartment, like money, like had I pulled out in any moment, had I pulled myself out of my own dream in fear, I would have pulled myself off trajectory of this life that I'm on now. That is now right at this moment, just expanding and flourishing in a way that I have yet to experience yet in the past 5 years. It feels so amazing. I'm on 8 podcasts this month. I have like multiple brand collaborations coming in right now.
Yeah.
My social media, my TikTok has always done quite well. It's like well over 50,000, and even with that, it's like trying to like not talk about psychedelics but talk about it. So it's like I'm even, and I haven't been consistent, like very easy growth, but Instagram was like this anomaly for me. And
Yeah.
even that, it's like it's only right now in my journey is my life, but I think is my life materializing in the way that I always envisioned. But it's because I've changed. Like I needed to create stability in myself. The first 2 years was hoping and praying, and in many ways outsourcing to still like the divine. But that was part of the first part of the journey was like, am I going to be held? Can I really leap and not end up on the street? I mean, I have family, so that wasn't going to happen. But you know what I mean? Like, but also my own ego, like my own sense of self. Like, there was so much that needed to get just demolished, really, in the past 5 years. Like, I needed to become somebody new, like cell by cell, like every part. And after the surprise 2 years, then I was like, okay, or like 2 years of just hoping and praying. Then it was like, I needed to stop everything. And ended up leaving that apartment, stayed with family. And I was like, it took 6 months to do nothing. I was in like, just maybe not 6 months, but like, I don't know what I'm doing. A little bit of the, I thought I believed this. I thought this was my path. What's the word I'm looking for? Like a little bit of dark night of the soul. Like around my third year was dark night of the soul time, because I realized that the way to create my life wasn't going to be from just, yes, miracles, yes, but that it wasn't just going to be like dropped in like it had been, like just surprise checks. Like I think that was just to show me that this is a magical, mysterious universe, that things that will blow your minds can happen. That was like step one.
Right.
Step two was, but you're the creator in this magical universe. You can create, but you got to take ownership and accountability and realize like you are a person in a physical world that needs to now start creating.
Right.
And so this last, then kind of like 2.5 years after that was a lot of like start, stop, try to create programs, try to create structure, stability. What is my life? How am I doing that?
Yeah.
And it's only now where I'm like, okay, you host, like, give people like a way to work with you. Like for many ways, I was self-sabotaging, bad self-sabotage, where I was like, why don't you have an offer? Like, why can't people work with you? I'm sorry, this is such a long monologue.
No, you're good. This podcast is really good.
But so much of it was like, yeah, but what do I really have to offer? I must learn more information. I have to just a few more years. It's like that one more, if I just get this, I'll have that. And so there was always this sense of like, you don't have enough to offer. Meanwhile, the audacity of some people that literally don't even know what they're doing at all, but they have very high self whatever, and just they're like, they do one trip and then they're like, I'm a guide, and like, and I'm going to charge you $1,500 for that. And you're like, you've had 6 psychedelic experiences total. I don't know that you're like necessarily the expert, but all right. I'm not saying, and by the way, I understand that's a calling for people, and I'm not trying to put anybody down for that, but I'm just saying, like, in retrospect, like, I actually had so much I could give, but it was, to me, it was, oh, am I enough? Is this enough?
Yeah.
And it's really only been kind of like this year at this time that we're meeting and talking, that my new website is up and like my offerings into the world of how people can work with me. And I just had a wonderful conversation with another woman that I feel really good about potentially like creating a business with. That's been another big thing, is like partnership. And also it's again about self-worth, that like I'm worth partnering with too. Like I can count on me, 5 years of like building something, and like if anything, I've showed myself like I count on you, Kat, like I count on you. And I think building that trust with myself has been fundamental. And then also I think that's why I think I'm also ready to like realize like, yes, you're enough for somebody else too in partnership. And I mean, obviously maybe like romantically as well, but in business, certainly.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about kind of what you said earlier with like being ready sort of with where you're at, right? Like being with yourself as you are. And that's a similar kind of realization I had with myself in a conversation with ChatGPT about like, partnership and that kind of thing, where it's like, there's often a part of myself where it's like, I can see and know the person that I would like to become, and like also know that I'm maybe further away from that than I want to be, and like know that progress, but like being okay with like the trajectory being enough, right? Being okay with like where I'm at. And like something I often think about a lot as well is like, you know, you talked about like, you know, showing up here and like, am I going to be sort of like big enough for whatever that might be? And I think there's something to the fact of like, we can forget that we've lived, I don't know exactly how old you are, but like for me, I'm 36, almost 37. It's like, I've lived 37 years of life. And so like all of that has prepared me for right now. Like I always think about this like very silly story, but like my friend, we were at like some burger joint in LA and he came back from the bathroom and he had like this stunned look on his face. And he was like, I opened the door out of the bathroom and the guy was looking at me. And he just said, all of my life has lived up, or all of my life has led up to this moment. And it was like, it's so funny because it's just like a very silly, like random moment, but it was also like profoundly true, right? It's like everything that we have done, both of us and up till right now, are here for whatever reason. Like every single thing that we've been through has brought us to this moment right now. And that's wild to think about.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of pivot into a question that kind of a little off track in some ways, but you know, I know that you recently shared about like I think you said retiring your old softball trophies, and I think in that experience, you know, you did that kind of with your parents. I'm curious if you could just walk us through like what led to your choice to do that.
Oh yeah, totally. So I played softball all my life. I mean, I guess since like 6 to 22. And I ended up getting a full ride to Villanova for softball.
Wow.
And so it was like, you know, coming back to being a person in the world that was like, you know, like very performance athlete, results based person from a very young age. And I, you know, I used to dream all the time about, I mean, really, it came from my mom being like, can we retire these? Because they've been at their house, you know, like, can we let these go? Like, it's like 25 of them or something, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it was so easy. I mean, it was my favorite. For my dad, it was like some of his favorite memories, like coming to all the time and the investment back into me and going to the tournaments all over Orange County and everywhere that we were, you know, like, and it was just a really special time in my life. But what was so interesting is the minute I was done, like I was done. I also, you know, I ended my softball career not necessarily on a high note. I struggled a lot with my coach, who was just a yeller for like, but not in a way that's helpful.
Right.
And would just yell at. I mean, she like would mentally break like multiple people, like psychologically, like couldn't literally like 2 pitchers on just in 4 years for me, like could no longer throw a strike. Like so, it's like head fucked from this, you know, like from her and the way that she did. And like, I had a strong mind. Like I think I already like don't love authority. Like I don't really like to be told what to do.
Sure.
And let alone like yelled at. And so, I'm always kind of like in this tension with her. I'm also deeply in pain at this point. I had a hip replacement at 22.
Wow.
And I needed the hip replacement the minute I got there. I was told my freshman year at 19, they're like, I was in a lot of pain. I was taking a silly amount. I'm so lucky that I didn't get like ulcers because I was taking so much Advil to get through the day, like 9 or 10 a day. Like just really, really, I'm really lucky actually that it didn't have like a more of an effect, or at least I don't think it did. And so the joy of softball was kind of pulled from my experience. And so when it was done, it was really done for me. And I would dream about it often. Like I would dream about them. I would dream about my team really up until like maybe a year ago. And I haven't dreamed about them at all. It hasn't even come into my awareness since. And so I feel like I was like, maybe I was just letting go of this experience. And then actually my mom coming to me to be like, can we take a picture with this, do a video and, you know, say goodbye to these? And it felt symbolic in a way.
That's very cool. Yeah. I noticed in that video, one of the things that stood out was like your dad seemed to have the hardest time with that, which I imagine because he probably poured a lot into you and there are moments that he shared with you and, you know, his daughter. Like, Yeah, I'm curious about that for you. Like how I guess how is he doing with having seen you let that go and through all that?
Oh, he's fine. He's totally fine. He's got the memory of it. Like that's the best. Like he still has one trophy in his room, so he has that. And like I pitched a no hitter in one of my college games, and so he's got that there. So
Mm.
he's fine. I'm very very close to my parents, and he loves to bring it up like anytime like he can remember. Once if we say one thing about softball, then it's a 15-minute conversation
Sure.
about
Yeah, yeah.
the days,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
days of softball.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was curious, like, if for you, was there any part of it for you, like having, I guess, because it's like those are those memories, like, there's almost like a part of yourself that wanting to be like seen beyond that in a sense, like, because there's like that was such a big part of your life, and I know with like our relationships with our parents are so unique because we are raised by them and we have one
Mhm.
relationship with them, and then as we become adults and they become peers in a sense, like they we have a different relationship with them. And I was curious if that was any part of that for you, was almost like this desire to be like, I don't know, seen for who you are now versus just like who you were in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I get to see my folks all the time.
Mm,
Been staying with family, and like
yeah.
so we've actually had the opportunity to know each other
Hmm,
really like as adults
yeah.
in a way that I don't think I really would have actually if I wasn't staying with family. It's been and my dad's older. He's 88, a very spry 88, might I
Yeah.
say. Very Oh no, he's 89. Really? 88? No, no, he's 88. 88. And my mom just turned 80, and so it's just been such a privilege to know each other as people, not just children, child, parent.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe for him it was probably a letting go of like a different iteration of Kat,
Sure.
but he has had I think a lot of experience of adult Kat, and
Mm,
we're genuinely friends. You
that's
know,
cool.
I feel very lucky to have like my parents have supported me from the get-go with Trip on this. Imagine
Yeah.
a lot of parents hearing that their kid's gonna leave their corporate sexy job and do a psychedelic podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one can imagine that that would not be have gone well. And
Yeah.
yet for me, I was only met with support. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that I know how lucky I am to
Yeah.
be this supported in my dream and in my crazy life, you know?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I guess speaking about your relationship with your parents, you did talk about, having done mushrooms with them. I'm curious, like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was really cool. Like they were just saw the change in me, and
Mm,
they saw like I would come over and share with them like the revelations I was having about myself, and they really just saw the transformation in me.
mm.
Really in a short amount of time. And then one day my dad just like, well, you gonna ask us to try it? I was like, I was literally never gonna ask you to try it, actually. But since you've asked, sure, like you're a grown adult, certainly. Like,
Yeah.
why not? So I got us a gram of mushrooms each. So we like 3 grams total, 1 gram
Mm,
each. And we did it in their backyard. And it was interesting, like I would have in hindsight, I would have like probably done it differently. I would have set up music. I would have made it more vibey. Like we were just
sure.
kind of like sitting out there. Like it
Yeah.
almost was like, now what's gonna happen? Like it was a little bit more of that where
Yeah.
I could have maybe created a better set and setting for I mean, the setting was beautiful, but a better vibe for the whole
Sure.
setting. My dad kind of resisted the experience
Mm,
for most of it.
yeah.
So he didn't really love it. He didn't have a bad time, but he didn't get it. Like he didn't really like love like why would anybody want to feel this? Like and
Mm,
I was like, okay, that's because you're in a resistant place where he's got a strong mind also
mhm.
and like if you want to hold on to what you know, it's disruptive, especially a gram isn't a it's kind of I also would probably change the dose.
Mm,
If I was to do it again, I would either have gone higher, like 1.75, like half an eighth each, or much lower, more like, you know, one like point five maybe, like something where point four even where I'm like, okay, we're gonna feel it, but we're just coming into social dose mode, just into it. Where 1 gram is kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I think,
yeah.
personally. It's not my unless you're building upon it, I don't know that that would be my favorite starting place unless I was pairing it with MDMA.
Hmm.
Then any dose really is, I find, to be okay, because MDMA feels pretty, it just feels so good in the body that
Yeah.
even if it starts getting a little trippy, you're like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then my mom she had a good time.
Nice.
She was enjoying herself, and then we ended up taking a nice walk. And yeah, the one kind of insight from that is that they just were so like impressed in the way in which I kind of just took care of them. You
Hmm.
know, like the roles were reversed. Like,
Yeah.
and not that I was like taking care, you know, like it was fine. It was only, it was a gram, but like, you know, holding their hands and asking questions, and being the one that they looked to for answers in this and
Yeah.
for guidance. And that's a very unique moment, that your parents are looking to the child for guidance.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
even an adult child, right? Like
yeah.
just in general, the dynamic was different for them and us.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about what that was like for you to sort of be in that service space while holding space for your parents in a experience like that.
It was nice. And, you know, it reminds me of your earlier question,
Hmm.
like them seeing me as, you know, as the adult and a caretaker and a nurturer, like that I can step into that role as, you know, authority is the wrong word, but just that sense of like adulthood, that like,
Hmm.
oh, our kid is, even though they know I'm a grown kid, you know, I am 39, by the way. I know
Yeah.
you said you weren't sure my age, but but at the time it was like, I was like, I don't know, 36 or 37, but still
Yeah.
like it was, and, and yeah, it was really just like, it was just cool to be seen as like as a full grown up by this
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, well, that actually hits into something that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to dive into was, before you had said that prior to psychedelics that you really didn't like being perceived, and now you kind of stepped, into social media, into podcasting, into this sphere where, thousands of people can perceive you in so many different ways. They have their comments or ideas and their various ideas. And, I'm curious about what your personal experience with being perceived is today, how that has shifted for you in this journey.
Yeah, I think this is so relevant for me right now,
Hmm.
especially because my social media has been like really like popping off
Hmm.
lately, and I've had some like pretty big viral videos. And I'll be honest, like so, like one of my videos has like 1.4 million, 1.8 million
Wow.
views, and like like thousands of comments. And there's a few actually, like so there's just suddenly dealt with like a lot of perception. Like
Yeah.
I was ready, but I don't think I would have been ready earlier. I think this is why
Hmm.
the timing is so wonderfully divine, because early on it was, I don't know if being perceived and being at the whim of the internet, which, let's be honest, is the Wild West. It's everywhere. It's so wild what people will say, not just to me, but just in
Yeah.
general. Like people, we can use it like a mannerist. Like it's so strange. And
Hmm.
the few moments that I was like kind of going viral-ish, I remember like the first moments I had gotten like a negative comment
Yeah.
earlier on, like, oh my God, I thought about that like all day into the next. Like it really, really, really took a lot of mental space for me. And I was like, well, how are you going to be this big person in the world with one comment? Like, let alone like puppies get hate on the internet. Okay. Like it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. Sorry, I'm like yelling at everyone. It doesn't matter like who you are or what you're doing. You can have the most benign video, but if it goes viral, you're going to have somebody that's saying something. And so I knew it consciously, but I would have probably, like, I could have easily self-sabotaged earlier on had I experienced big pers- big viral moments early, because then as I started like I started really kind of experiencing virality through TikTok in like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. And depending on if I'm a little edgier with what I'm talking about, or if I feel like I know that what I'm saying might not be what everyone's going to agree with. I'm usually not, like, I'm not somebody who's just trying to poke people for a reaction. That's not my style at all. But like I just know like some things are just more charged than others. And there was times where like that I knew the charge could happen. It was happening. And I went through like full fight or flight responses where I wanted to delete it. I didn't feel safe. Like it felt like it genuinely felt like unsafety to the point like I had a saber-toothed tiger running after me. And that's how I realized, oh, whoa, you have to be like nervous system ready for this. And so like, that kind of like slower growth, I think was helping me create a sense of self that could hold that much energy being sent to you. And now, what I would say to anybody that wants to get into this space, if they're a content creator, if they want to be, there's an incredible resource of fame and an audience and having the ability to reach thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people with your message, especially if it's a message that you really want to help with, right? And holding everything that comes with it is part, I think, the journey. I don't know that anybody would be used to having millions of people who don't know you that are only experiencing 1 minute of you out of context, right? And so I consistently still have to say, I'm safe in my body. I'm safe in this world. I'm safe to be seen. I'm safe to be perceived by millions of people. I'm safe to be disagreed with. I'm safe to be made fun of. I'm safe to be loved. I'm safe to be, and I will go through like literally everything I can think of that what is the thing that you're afraid of when you're being perceived like this? What is the thing? And like call it out and like bring it to the forefront because you can't hide it from yourself. And once I can do that, that's one piece is that I create like an inner safety for myself and realize the gift of all of it. And then I also think like on a like more of a spiritual way, I think of myself kind of surrounded by like a white light, like a little bubble. And then I'll usually tune into a color that I want to feel that day. And that color, so let's say I'm feeling like for whatever reason, and this is very intuitive, but like I'll tune into a color of like deep magenta, almost like a reddish pink. And I was like, okay, this could be, maybe it's anger, maybe it's lust, maybe it's like whatever this is, that I sense that this video is creating or could create, or I'm just out in the world and people are experiencing it and they're sending energy back. I think of like this bubble around me and that all that energy, all those eyeballs, whether they're comments, literally eyeballs, likes, whatever it is coming in, and that this bubble is able to transmute anything that is negative or unhelpful, that it's able to alchemize it into something that is like a pure fuel source for me. And then ultimately I metabolize it as a blessing of it's their energy ultimately. But I'm alchemizing the energy of all kinds into, oh, this is just fuel. And I'm going to just a little twist. And it's, look, people can think if you're a skeptic, that's okay. This might not be for you, other than I do feel like when I am just out there and haven't brought any awareness that people's feelings and whatever comes at you, like I can feel quite tired if I forgot to create some awareness around like protection in any way. But for me, it is like energetic protection.
Yeah, and I love that idea. And there may be plenty of people skeptical, but like, whether it's real and imagine or just makes you feel that way. Like I know so many different people, again, whether they're actually spiritual and really do believe this or just believe that like putting your imaginative state, stepping into an alter ego, that kind of thing can really help do that. But I really love the idea of just alchemizing everything coming at you. It makes me think of how an artist takes, their emotions, the hate coming at them, or like a rapper who's like, just writes a song about their haters and that kind of thing and turns that into fuel for themselves. And it sounds like you found an amazing way to do that for yourself. And I might steal that from you as well. Kat, this has been a lovely conversation, and we are wrapping up near the end of our show. And one question I always ask all my guests at the end of this episode is just, what's one question that you might have for the audience that might shift their perspective or have them think about something in a different way?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. I just made a video. I think one of the things that I struggled with in this past 5 years was the fear of making the wrong choice. And so much so that I would make no choice. I would just kind of get into states of inertia. I don't know if that's the right word, but like basically right? Not like, so I'd get into these states where I was almost paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. And the question I would ask myself and anyone is, okay, so what about us thinks that any decision we make is permanent? Why do we think that if we decide to take a leap or make a choice or move to this place, what why do we think that we can't change again if we don't like it? If it's not what we thought, if we do it and and realizing like, oh, we could just pick directions and or like go in this direction and like life will show us very quickly. Does that have energy? Does it not? Okay, no, it doesn't. And I think like if I could have I would have less mental and been like, what sounds fun and exciting right now? What seems like an interesting idea right now? And do I know I can always change it? Yes, you can always change it. And I know people are money and this and that. Like, okay, sometimes it's going to be harder. Like it'll take a little more time and more whatever, but we're never stuck with one thing. So it's like we can't ever choose wrong. And also, no choice is ever permanent. And no choice, we never know where it takes us. It's like you start a podcast like you did, Cameron. You're going to meet a bunch of people. You have no idea if you're going to meet your best friend. You have no idea what business you might create through this. You have no idea unless you literally just take a step in any direction.
Awesome. I love that. And Kat, this has just been an absolutely fantastic conversation, and I really appreciate your time. If people want to find out more about you, where would you, like to send them? Any websites, Instagram, etc.?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me so much. Thank you everyone for listening. It's at Life with Kat Walsh on my TikTok and my Instagram. Kat is with a K, and lifewithkatwalsh.com is my website. You can check out everything I'm doing over there.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your day. Ciao.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye.